Today on All Things 80s, the Beano comic, issue 4000 versus my Beano from the 80s. Welcome back to All Things 80s. Now, as I was out and about the other day in Scotland, I happened to see this for sale, which is the Beano comic, but this is a special one because it's issue 4000. So clearly it was a weekly comic, so I'm not going to do the math at this very moment, but we can tell it's a very, very old comic. And it was one that I loved reading as a child. In fact, there were two comics available. There was the Dandy and the Beano. And I was, I guess, very fortunate in as much as one grandma would bring me the Beano, the other grandma would bring me the Dandy. I think of the two, I probably preferred the Dandy, but only just. So anyway, this is issue 4000. So I'm not holding high hopes for this, given that it's 2019, and I'm sure everything contained within this comic is pretty sanitized, which was not the case for me growing up. But we'll get to my 80s Beano in a moment. From looking at the cover, I see Dennis the Menace, Gnasher the dog. I think she was Minnie the Minx. The other characters I do not recognize. And Dennis, I'm assuming it's because it's the 4000th issue. They're making it as if it's in the future. He looks like the Terminator. That's not how I remember Dennis the Menace. But anyway, I'm going to take a quick look to see if things do kind of compared to how it was. So far, actually, you know what, I'm happy with this. This first strip, Beano to the Future, it does show the characters as I pretty much remember them, and I'm guessing this is Dennis the Menace in the future, so I can forgive them for that cover, which was not my Dennis the Menace. Yeah, okay, I'm reasonably happy with the artwork. I can see, yes, I can see the Bash Street Kids, which was another favourite of the 80s. I am aware of the diversity that's being shown in these comic strips. That wasn't something the artists had to worry about in the 80s. What's this, a word search? Ah, hang on. They have the, okay, this is an advert for the Annuals, which is what I'm going to be using as my 80s reference point. But they do have a Dandy Annual, but I could not see a Dandy comic. So I'll need to investigate that. But let's see, next strip. Minnie the Minx, like I said, that was one I remembered. Yeah, it's Minnie the Minx with a 2019 feel to it. This comic, Numbskulls, that's probably new. I don't remember a strip called Numbskulls. Of course, nowadays it's all about merchandise. We have t-shirts, key rings, even a whoopee cushion, so that's kind of cool. But back in my day, I think we only had the option to join the fan club, which came with a couple of badges. This one, Calamity James, the unluckiest boy in the world. That's new to me. Roger the Dodger, classic, remember him. Billy Whiz, yes, still the same. Of course, now it's talking about computers and things, but that's understandable. Beano Summer Spectacular is a prize giveaway, and have to enter. It's all PlayStations and whatever PS or whatever Nintendo are doing. I don't follow that stuff. Radio controlled vehicles. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is for its time. You know, I still live back in the 80s in my head, so This all seems very futuristic to me, but I'm sure it's standard fare for kids these days. The Bash Street Kids, that was one I remembered. So it's good to see they have maintained these stories. Ruby's Screwtop Science. Nope, that's all very new, and the fact it is a girl who is, from what I can gather, some sort of science whiz. It's very in keeping with the politically correct times these days. Banana Man. Now I know Banana Man. I remember the cartoon Banana Man. I don't recall him being in the Beano. I could be wrong, of course, but it's good to see another classic has survived. This is fans sending in their photographs. Dennis and Gnasher. Yeah, it more or less looks the same. I'm sure the stories are pretty sanitized compared to what I remember. This Betty and the Yeti. Don't recall that at all, but interesting to note. I'm assuming Betty is the black girl here with the white Yeti, so it's just, I guess it's reinforcing the fact that colour doesn't matter and black and white can coexist. You know, like I said, it's all very politically correct. Beano to the Future Part 2. So this was a continuation of that first story. And, oh, that's actually it. Oh, what's this one? Not So Clean Clara. That's new to me. This was £2.75. If memory serves, the comics I got each week were 10p, 10 pence. 1985, the Beano Annual. So at the end of each year, they would put together, for Christmas time, for the Christmas period, would be at what they call the annual, which would be like a thick book just filled with comic strips, all new comic strips I should add. It wasn't just a compilation of what was released during the year. Interesting. This whole book was £2.25, and it's hardback book with, it doesn't have page numbers, but you can see how thick this is. So this costs less than this. I get it, there's inflation to think of, but you get my point. So anyway, quick look at this. There's Minnie the Minx, Dennis and Gnasher. Actually, when I remember these, Dennis the Menace was quite the bully, and his victim was always this guy Walter, who, you know, was your typical sort of nerd with the center parted hair, the glasses, and basically the comic basically was Dennis bullying this poor Walter. But typically he got his comeuppance at the end, which it seems like maybe he did. There's Billy Whiz, saw that one in the 2019. The Bash Street Kids, again, that survived. It's pretty good that they've maintained so many of these characters. Roger the Dodger, again, has survived. I would love to sort of do a reading of these one of these days, because these strips, or comic strips, were they weren't risque by any means, but they did show a side of society that would not be allowed to exist in 2019. There's a lot of bullying, there's a lot of, I guess, sexism in that, you know, only boys could play football, girls had to play with dolls type thing, which was perfectly okay at the time. Little Plum, this was about, I was going to say a Red Indian, but even that's frowned on these days, a Native American story. And, you know, even this is, it's all very cliche. Just to give you a quick example, he says, I'll take the shortcut up this mountain path, which he does, and there's a tiger or whatever attacking him, and he used to call himself, instead of, we would say I'm, he would say so it's very, you know, sort of stereotypical native Indian language they would use. You know, we have a, I guess it's a circus or something. You have the lion tamer in there, I guess. Lions in a cage. In fact, that you can't really depict animals being caged these days. This is a thing from Dennis the Menace's mom. Let's see, Pup Parade. I do remember Pup Parade. That didn't make its way to the new comic. This is interesting. I don't remember this. Tom, Dick and Sally. And it looks as if, from what I can see, we have Tom and Dick bullying Sally, hitting her with water pistols, putting the goldfish bowl on her head so she can't move anywhere. Let's see. Yeah, just stuff that wouldn't fly these days. The Three Bears. I remember that. This is a great trip down memory lane. Babyface Finlayson, the cutest bandit around. So this was like a cowboy style bandit who was baby faced, and yeah, just doing sort of typical boy things. Here's a strip called Football Daft. Football Daft is Ball Boy again. Was he called Ball Boy perhaps? And you know what? I'm intrigued by this. This is what, 1985. We do have a couple of black faces at the dinner table. Of course, the boy has a big afro. So I guess they were inclusive back then. That's all right. The Nibblers, a bunch of mice. I vaguely remember that. Minnie the Minx, we've seen her. She's made her way to 2019. I'd love to swap headgear with some folk. Alright, it's just like a silly sort of switching people's hats around. Castaway, don't remember that. But that's still Minnie the Minx. Okay, Smudge. Whatever. Biffo the Bear. Yeah, Biffo. Why was no Biffo in 2019? He was one of the major characters actually. Biffo, yeah. That was one of the big draws of the Beano magazine. Bash Street Kids. Okay. Little Plum. So I guess Billy Wisdom. I'm football. Okay, I'm remembering now that each character got a couple of strips in the annual. Lord Snooty, I remember that. He was this very sort of posh individual, but nothing really to write home about. This one, hang on, I remember this character. Of course, Grandpa, who was sort of depicted as this sort of slightly silly, senile old man. But again, everything involved a lot of accidents and someone getting hurt in some way. Back when I was reading these, yeah, these really were. These were it's like so much entertainment, because obviously there were no video games to speak of. We had 3 channels of TV to select from, so a lot of the time was spent reading these books, which I think was a good thing, to be honest. There's nothing wrong with children reading, even if it is just a cartoon comic book. So yeah, like without going into super detail, I can tell you right now that what I was reading would not fly these days, and what I've seen from this 4,000th issue is not something that would interest me as a child. But remember, I am an old man thinking back to a child, so perhaps the children these days are perfectly happy with this. I'm just happy to see that it still exists and it's made the 4,000 mark. I'm just concerned, why couldn't I find a Dandy comic? But anyway, this was the Beano 85 versus Beano 2019. Hope you enjoyed it. I kind of did. It was fun. So please like, please subscribe. See you next video.